Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Zzzax of Live podcast, a Marvel podcast from Laughing Place. I'm Mike Mack. That's Kyle Burbank.
We probably should have switched sides. We still can. It's not too late.
It is weird. It's there you go. Okay, there's the switch. I like the effect that it does when we actually switch in the video there. For those people who are listening, this means nothing. Anyway,
nope,
we are back.
You're gonna pan one of us to the right and one of us to the left, and then you're gonna switch them when we switched on the camera. And then, no, we're kidding. You're like, I don't even know how to do that.
So this is episode number 82. We are going to be discussing Echo, a very different kind of Marvel topic to discuss in this episode here. We're of course going to catch up on the latest Marvel news, though it's only been 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks since our last episode. So not a whole lot to catch up on. And we do have a return of the draft today. So we'll have a draft and how much is that cameo? So we're back.
I just realized we normally say like a fun draft, and then I remember what the topic is.
Yeah.
Not so fun, honestly.
No, not a fun draft. I was putting my list together for this one and thinking, this is not a fun topic. I don't know how we're going to make this enjoyable.
I was getting choked up reading my list of options to Rebecca.
But we will talk about that a little bit more later. It's in the episode title, so it's already there for you anyway. But we're going to keep it a secret until then. Let's start off with some Marvel news, as we always do. And we have kind of a mix of some, it's all sort of production related in terms of the MCU projects coming up. We have a couple of negatives and a couple of positives. Where do you want to start? Do we start negative and then go positive?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it that way.
All right. Well, our first story then is, turns out Steven Yeun is not going to be playing the Sentry in Thunderbolts. Not only that, he's not in Thunderbolts anymore. So he was rumored to be playing. It was reported. It was said by his friend, Robert Kirkman, the creator of The Walking Dead, a show in which Steven Yeun starred, that he would be playing Robert Reynolds, a.k.a. the Sentry, in this series or in this film. He's not in it anymore. I guess scheduling conflicts and things just didn't work out, and he had to pull out of the project.
And this story broke maybe like an hour or two after our last episode. It almost felt like a direct rebuttal.
Right. Yeah, because we finally talked about it, and I was really excited about the news. And then, that news came out moments after we ended the episode. So apologies to those of you who were excited about that for the last episode. There are rumors out there already of casting for this character, so it does seem the Sentry is going to be a role in this film, but we just don't know who's going to be playing him just yet. So, like I said, that was one of the negatives. Another one is that She-Hulk star Tatiana Maslany has said she doesn't expect a season 2 for She-Hulk. This is certainly not official. It's still possible that we could get a season 2. Just doesn't seem likely if the star doesn't have a good feel for it. Does this surprise you at all?
It does. Like, I know she said like, oh, we blew our budget, but this is the most TV show like of all of, well, maybe with the exception of Loki and WandaVision for obvious reasons, but like this one feels like a TV show. Like, we'll talk about Echo and how you're like, I don't know if that needed to be a TV show. This, adapted to the format. And so, yeah, I would definitely want more of it. In fact, I could see them, if the budget's the problem, like we were saying last time, just lean more into the initial conceit of the show. That's fine. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be the full-blown thing it ended up being. Like, we did that for season 1. Now just be She-Hulk liar. I want to see that show.
Very, very true. I do agree with that. Also, Jeremiah, who we may or may not be hearing from a little bit later, says, boo, She-Hulk was the best. I agree. I really, really like She-Hulk. I'm not surprised, though. I think just the public reaction to the series combined with that budget issue, which I think, what did we see? It was roughly $25 million an episode. And they did, 8 episodes of She-Hulk, something like that. So, big budget series. And it was primarily just like the CGI of the the title character that created such a huge budget. So it would be kind of hard to work around that. But I don't disagree. I would love to watch just Jennifer Walters, attorney at law. And they could have some really interesting, make it a courtroom comedy. I'm totally on board for that. But we'll see. I fully expect Tatiana Maslany to return as She-Hulk in the MCU, just not likely in a season 2 of She-Hulk.
Maybe that's the key. You just said it right there a minute ago. It's not going to be She-Hulk attorney at law. It'll be Jennifer Walters attorney at law.
Yeah. So it's not technically season 2. It'll be just a brand new series. All right, let's talk about some positive news. And actually, I'm going to shift up my order a little bit here because I want to talk about the other one last. So we're going to jump to Agatha Darkhold Diaries, almost completed filming. Catherine Hahn has said that they only have a few, not reshoots. What's the word? What's the more technical term? They had a few spots they had to refilm, I guess. I don't know. Yes, there you go. That's what it was. So they just had to have to wrap up. She said a few more days and they'll be done. So that's good. That's,
doesn't mean it's coming out any sooner, but
right. No, very true. We still don't know exactly when we're going to see Darkhold Diaries. We don't know if that will be the title of the show because I don't trust anyone anymore. But it is exciting to hear that they are pretty much done with it. It does feel like the MCU has kind of been in flux with the projects that may or may not end up happening. This one feels like a lock now. I think we're getting Agatha Darkhold Diaries, and I'm excited for it. I think that should be a pretty fun show. And our final piece of news, I think, in my opinion, the most exciting, Patrick Stewart has said that talks of Deadpool 3 have come up for him to reprise his role as Charles Xavier, a character as which he has died multiple times across several films. So it'll be interesting to see him reprise the role again. Of course, multiverse, nothing really matters, but excited for this. What did you think? Do you want to see him back as Charles Xavier?
I mean, I don't think I know anyone who doesn't. The other thing I thought it was interesting about that article was, I forget the exact words that they quoted in the headline to talk about his experience on Multiverse of Madness, and they made it sound like he was disappointed with the movie or the experience, and it was really just because he was like, oh no, it was just weird because I was on my own and it was COVID protocols and all of that. So not misleading, but little, if you just read the headline, it was you came away with the wrong idea of what he was talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was really just like he never worked with Benedict Cumberbatch, which I went back and watched some of that, and it's so weird to think that these people are not in the same room. But yeah, it is exciting that he is. I mean, nothing official. We don't know that he is reprising the role, but the fact that he kind of gives a little smile, and this was an interview you can see on YouTube. We have the link on laughingplace.com right now. He kind of gives a little smile when he's asked about it, and then says that the talks have come up. Obviously he's not going to be like, yeah, I'm in it. So I think that's the point in the right direction there. So that's really it. That's all the news we've had to talk about from the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of other, Marvel merchandise, Marvel comics, things like that. But you can check out laughingplace.com for all of that. So let's get into Echo. This was... You're right. Hang on. I'm going to get the banner up there to let you know there are spoilers coming for Echo. We're going to have a full spoiler-filled discussion. Now I can't find my banner, so I'm just going to keep vamping as
I just made it.
I just made it before we started here.
I wish you could change fonts so that you could have it like descending like an Echo.
Yeah, that would be fun. Nope. Yeah, I don't see it here now. So, here it is. There we go. So we are going to have spoilers for Echo. If you haven't watched the series yet, as long as this banner is up, mute us or whatever. If you're watching or listening, you've probably watched Echo by now. This was a different project. Like I said at the top here, this was 5 episodes, all dropped all at once on both Disney Plus and Hulu. And it was the first TVMA series since, the MCU started putting out Disney Plus projects. So with all of that being said,
and the first Marvel Spotlight.
And the first Marvel Spotlight, yes, which I do want to talk about a little bit more in depth. But with all of that, adding up, what do you think? How did you enjoy Echo?
I liked it overall. There's obviously this one I had lots of questions at the end, but I liked a lot of the things it did. I think it probably had more like a lot of good moments. Um, but yeah, kind of like I alluded to earlier, I don't know if it needed to be a series, but I also don't know if I would have wanted it as a movie. So I guess it's just kind of that weird, maybe like a special movie, like a TV movie, I guess would be what it is. So I guess you have to divide it up for that reason. But yeah, like the ending went really fast. Like it's a half-hour drama.
Yeah.
Oh, sort of. The TVMA aspect of it, it was definitely more from the beginning. It's a little bit more brutal. There's more gunplay than
Yes.
in other things, but it was kind of funny to me because there's some that I'd say are probably borderline TVMA, but I feel like they might have added a scene or intensified a scene just to make sure they got a TVMA. Like I feel like it was almost more of a marketing thing to position it that way than that it really needed a TVMA. Because like in my mind, the only like really over the line thing was the skate rink when they killed the skate cleaning guy. Like that was really bloody. Otherwise, there's just like a couple of like sprays of blood.
Yeah. Yeah, there were a few.
Not that I'm complaining because I don't like a lot of gore and stuff. So right. It was good for me. I just thought it was kind of funny because I felt like it was they played up the fact that it was TVMA.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and I think you might be right that they wanted to push the TVMA rating to try and see, well, what kind of audience do we still have for something like this. But I think they experimented with this show a lot to the point where they added too many variables. Like, what if we make a TVMA? What if we put it under a new banner? What if we release it on Disney Plus and Hulu and drop all the episodes at once? Now you don't really know what worked and what didn't. So
yeah, it's not really an A/B test. It's an A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there was a lot going on there. That being said, I think I enjoyed it more than I expected to. Every sign, all of those things.
There's lots of signing, so
fair. Kind of pointed to this being something Marvel was kind of just trying to sweep under the rug and move on from. It didn't have good vibes going into it, but I think, and we'll jump into it here now. But I think aside from the beginning of it, the beginning and the end, which we'll talk about more because I definitely have some thoughts to share on the end of this show. I feel like the first half of the first episode was sort of shoehorned in to make it fit that spotlight banner that feels like it was created for this show now. So it was really, really strange because the first half, and again, a half-hour episode, so we got like 15 minutes of, yes, there's some new footage in there, but a lot of it is just recapping Hawkeye. And the idea of the spotlight banner is saying, well, you don't need to have seen previous MCU projects to understand this one. So here's everything you need to know in 15 minutes. So that kind of felt a little bit forced and felt a little bit messy in some of the editing and things like that. But once they move on from that, I felt like it really clicked. It found its own, it became its own thing, and I enjoyed it from that point on.
Yeah, I just thought that the way that it was, yeah, you're right about like the first intro, and then the way that it was. So even though these all dropped together, we watched them a bit more spaced out because that's what we would normally do with television. And because of that, then it kind of creates some like little pacing issues. Like, you have a Biscuits heavy episode, and then you feel like you don't see him forever. And then you got, the big deal where you find out that her cousin knows that she's in town, and then you don't see the cousin again for a while. Yeah. So that kind of threw me off. I'm like, hey, what? She's gonna come back, right? And I don't think you would have had that if it was just a straight episodic story.
Yeah, and it definitely feels like there was a lot of this show on the cutting room floor. Like they chopped this up. It feels like it was probably more than 5 episodes, or maybe they were longer episodes. Because really, you do end up with what would have been movie length, right? You're like looking at about 2.5 hours. which is certainly not crazy for the MCU. I don't think they would have given Echo a 2.5-hour movie, but you're right in that realm. So yeah, it definitely feels like there was some stuff missing. Some of the story kind of got chopped up a little bit, but again, given the expectations, I was pleasantly surprised. And a big part of that for me was the cast as a whole, but really two people. And we'll start with obviously Alaqua Cox, who I thought was once again fantastic. She was great in Hawkeye, but a very limited role in Hawkeye. Didn't get to tell a lot of story. I think she really, really crushed this role in this show.
Yeah, and it was this goes to her strength, but also I thought it was interesting the way they use different characters to play opposite her, because she's like very, for the most part, level throughout, except for there's a couple times where she gets like worked up, and you could see like she's speaking a little bit like there's just one scene in particular where she kind of like has a voice instead of just using her hands. But I also thought it was interesting the way that they kind of paired her against people, and the way how you have her kind of staying in her lane and the other people changing the way that they act, especially like with the signing. Like some people just sign, some of them kind of go slowly, some people would just fully speak, and then some don't sign at all, as we'll talk about.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of an interesting aspect of it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that there's a couple of moments, but one in particular, the scene which she has that emotional conversation with her grandmother, and she like lets out this sort of like scream whisper. It was so powerful, that moment, like to hear her voice for I think probably the first time. We might have gotten a moment like that earlier in the show, but and I thought her performance was just so good, especially in that moment. I want to address a question from Krishna. Do you think this will be used to set up a movie with Echo in it, or is the character more or less done? I think we could see more Echo. I think, given we have the Daredevil series coming up and she has a lot of crossover with Daredevil. But
I think she'd be a fit for Thunderbolts because she's kind of got that anti-hero thing going on.
Yeah, that's very true. The vibe of the show itself does give off like, yeah, this is it for her. But it's the MCU. You can never really rule out anybody. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see her show up in a project or two. But that also leads me to my next point, because I said there are two actors in this show who really knocked it out of the park. And yes, to also answer Jeremiah's question, Kingpin is the other one. Vincent D'Onofrio has been spectacular. Actually, after watching this, I have gone back and started watching Daredevil again. And he is unbelievable in this role. And actually, how many other projects have you seen Vincent D'Onofrio in?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
For me, I think just Jurassic World is the only other one that stands out. I'm sure I've seen him in a few other things. He sinks himself into this role so much that it's just like, I can't even see him as other characters anymore. This is just who he is to me.
But something I wanted to ask you, because I still haven't watched Netflix's Daredevil. I guess it's now on Disney Plus, but we're going to refer to it as Netflix's Daredevil till the end of time. People talked about the version we saw in Hawkeye was a little, I don't know if cartoonish is quite the right word, but he has like the Hawaiian shirt and stuff.
Yeah.
People were a little critical of that. Where is this on a spectrum of that to the Netflix one? Did you feel like it moved?
It is closer to Daredevil than it was to Hawkeye, but there is still, actually, I mean, he has a compassion to him, but really only to a very limited amount of people in going back to the Daredevil series. And this is actually a good point to bring up too, because again, we're talking about the TVMA rating of Echo. It does not come close to Daredevil. I almost forgot how brutal those Netflix shows were, and not all of them. Like Iron Fist was a little bit different, but wow, was Daredevil brutal. There's some moments that really go over the top that you don't come close to in Echo. So yeah, that it's not quite on that scale, but yeah, once again, and I like that we've seen now sort of 3 different iterations of Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin, in different points of his life, and less or more intense in certain points. But yeah, once again, he just absolutely crushes this role. And, we talked about a different draft topic. I'm sure we'll end up doing the draft in the future. Probably like a year from now, so we'll completely forget about this conversation by then. But if we were doing a best Marvel casting draft, D'Onofrio is near the top of my list for sure.
You can talk for a second. I gotta go close my shades before I get swallowed by the sun. Apparently, I'll be right back.
Well, I will address a couple of comments here in the meantime. We got Kyle, not Kyle Burbank, saying Echo was awesome. So yeah, we do have some fans of Echo. I've seen mostly a positive reaction to the series, actually. And then we have the multiverse that could bring back anything. Of course, yeah, anything is on the table. Jeremiah, we'll talk about your comment later because I'm not sure what we're. I know what you're. Yes, okay. So Jeremiah says even more so than Men in Black. There's another Vincent D'Onofrio role that I totally forgot about. So, but yeah, I think that
it's okay. You were flashy thingy.
Yes, exactly. That movie, no, that movie has been ingrained into my brain as someone who grew up in the 90s. But that movie is like purposely goofy, and his role fits that perfectly. So it's hard to compare the two. But yeah, he is Kingpin forever to me. One more member of the cast that I want to talk about real quick, and you mentioned the character Biscuits. Cody Lightning is the actor, and I just want to point out the ridiculous coincidence that little peek behind the curtain, but I covered the Tribeca Film Festival for Laughing Place back over the summer. I just happened to pick a movie. I just needed a movie to watch. We have a review on laughingplace.com. I picked a movie called Hey Victor because the summary sounded pretty funny. It is the story of Cody Lightning, who is a child actor who was in a movie called Smoke Signals. And he was fantastic in that movie. I really loved him in that. And now I just see him pop up in Echo, and there you go. It was just the weird Marvel connections that always happen to take place. So, Hey Victor, highly recommend it, by the way. Funny movie.
He has the funniest scene in the entire show because there's not many. It's not meant to be a comedy,
right?
But when he drives by busted trucks and just pretends like he can't see his grandma staring at him. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that did. I'm watching these by myself in a dark room where nobody else can see the episodes to write my recaps and reviews and things like that. And I laughed out loud at that moment. So that's how you know it's truly funny. One of the things that stands out about this series is, of course, the action. The fight sequences were incredible. In particular, I thought the fight in the skate rink was really awesome. The way she uses the arcade to her advantage, like the gun on the cable, and like uses that as like a whip. Some really, really cool fight choreography in this movie or in this show. So that was unsurprising to me. That was one of the things that I expected to be really good about the show. And it definitely delivered. There were some other really cool action sequences that weren't specifically like one-on-one fights. Like the whole train sequence was really good. And then actually that moment where you then see the bomb go off in New York, that brought me back to the Netflix shows. That felt like a Netflix type of thing, like that dark, gritty sort of style of filmmaking. Kind of fit with that very well. Another really great fight scene, and I want to get your thoughts on the presence of Daredevil, because that fight scene in the first episode was really cool. Were you surprised at what Daredevil's role was in this show?
I wasn't surprised to see him, but yeah, I was surprised that he then did not do anything.
Yeah, no, that
and he's in his he's not even in his like mustard one that we saw from She-Hulk.
Yeah, because trying to piece together the timeline and assuming the Netflix series are now MCU canon, this would be well before the events of She-Hulk, so he has the other costume still. But I was really caught off guard when, they're already having this awesome fight scene, and then you see the Billy Club fly in, and I was like, whoa, this early, like it is still, it's in that aforementioned recap in the first half of the first episode. And he's in it for 3 minutes of a fight scene against Echo.
And then it messed me up because then when I see Renner, I'm like, oh, and I'm like, oh, wait, we already saw this.
Right. Yeah, I was curious about that too. I haven't gone back to Hawkeye to check if that was any different. Maybe they used any different footage or anything like that. But yeah, when I saw his face, I was like, oh, I wonder if they brought him back to shoot anything. Then I was like, no, this is probably just that exact scene word for word. But yeah, the Daredevil fight scene was great. I was a little disappointed that he didn't have a bigger role. I didn't expect a huge role, but I thought maybe a little bit more. In the comics, Echo and Daredevil they have a long, complicated romantic relationship. So that, that could have played a role. They have already sort of kind of changed that for the MCU, because it was Fisk told Echo that Daredevil killed her father and it wasn't Ronin. So that role has sort of been filled there. But still expected a little bit more of a relationship between the two characters, and maybe we'll still get it in Daredevil Born Again, but we'll see. I want to talk about one of the coolest pieces of technology that the MCU has introduced, and I was very surprised to see in this show. The contact lens that they force on Maya to see, which, by the way, I don't think we've said her name yet, Maya Lopez. That is the name of the main character, who is not even really officially given the name Echo. They just sort of mention that she's like an Echo.
Kind of like the Scarlet Witch, where we're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the episode, the name of the 5th episode. Did you catch the naming convention in the episodes?
I did at some point, and now I've totally forgotten. So
they're the names of the different
oh yes, the ancestors. That's right. Yeah, and then you get to Maya. Yeah, but yeah, so we see the contact lens that creates the signing and translates for Maya, because Wilson Fisk, characteristically correct, has not taken the time to learn ASL. So I thought that was just really, really awesome technology that feels like it should be real at this point.
I don't know about a contact lens, but I have to imagine that something like this is especially with like a AR or a VR thing. But yeah, I wonder. I think something like this in like glasses could totally happen within the next few years, if it hasn't already. Like, I just went to CES, I didn't say anything, but it's possible.
Yeah, it definitely seems like something, well, somebody get on that. That feels like technology that should exist. But yeah, it was that was cool. The story of the show as a whole, I thought, was well done in its simplicity. There wasn't a whole lot to it, and I think that's how it should have been. Like, it was Maya returning home, but to avoid Wilson Fisk, and then Fisk's men hunt her down, and that's it. That's the whole conflict, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's really well done in terms of telling a grounded story, as opposed to how crazy the MCU can get. And I think that's one issue I have with comics, is that stories, even like this, tend to get so much more complicated. There's so many other side stories and things like that. And that's something I think this show did really well, was keeping it streamlined.
I agree with that, except that that's kind of where my confusion, if that's the right word, with the finale came in, because they tried to make it seem like it was going to be a bigger thing than it was. And I don't mind it not being a big thing, but just it felt weird that the way that they kind of hyped it up, and then you have these just kind of strange moments, like Biscuit's monster truck, or the guy shooting him instantly and winking. I thought that was kind of unnecessary to me. I mean, it's good to see those characters again, but that kind of threw me off.
Yeah, no, and let's get into that whole final conflict now, because I thought it was weird that they were attacking the entire powwow as a whole. Like the whole conflict was just Fisk versus Maya, and now all of a sudden he's got this whole rivalry against the Choctaw people in general that was never explained or built up in any way. And again, I think this probably was a longer show at some point, and a lot of it ended up cut out. But so I thought that was weird. And then, yeah, there are these moments, these sort of heroic moments for other members of her family and other people in town that just kind of feel almost unearned, because, again, we just didn't have the story for it. But my big issue with this was, the action was so good in this show throughout. The fight scenes were great. And we've had Wilson Fisk. Again, I rewatching Daredevil, the season finale, the season 1 finale, the fight scene between Daredevil and Kingpin feels like it's something that shouldn't work. Kingpin is this big lumbering guy, doesn't feel like you'd be able to have a good like fight choreography, and it was great. It's one of the best Marvel fight scenes. So I would have loved to see that happen with Echo, but instead we get this sort of, and to this point, a ground has been this sort of through line of this glowing power with Maya's ancestors and things like that. But to have it be the whole resolution, her just sort of touching him with a glowing hand and making him relive a childhood trauma, but him also, there's this moment of him yelling, "What did you do?" And it's like, well, oh, what did she do to him? We don't know.
I would like to know as well. Like, it almost seemed like the way that it's edited, it almost seems like I'm a different person now, and I'm going to live a better life. And like Jeremiah is saying the literal answer, but I'm just saying, like, the way that it's edited, it seems like, she erased that part of his past, and now he's like an alternate.
Yeah.
Fisk.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like that's what it seems like they're playing at that, but it also, like, he doesn't seem any different. So, and they don't even really give him time to seem any different. You also, after that whole conflict, they just watch as Fisk and his men get in a car and drive away before the police arrive. So it's like, again, something feels like it was missing there, because there's really no resolution. So it was kind of a letdown. And I think, again, I think people were largely surprised with, I would say probably 4 total episodes. You're just missing the first half of the first one, the second half of the 5th one. And in between, everything was great. And then you kind of just get a letdown at the end there. But I
thought that the actual, I thought that the stuff with Fisk in the room, I liked. I thought it was interesting, like seeing her powers all come together and stuff. I just thought that the stuff surrounding it kind of threw me off.
Well, and and if that to you includes, her grandmother lifting a man and throwing him up into the ceiling, then yes, I agree, because I didn't need that. Give me a moment where that lets Maya be the hero, and in the end there, as opposed to just.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of like she's kind of like the Marvels, that are all like sort of connected, and you see the other people in her. So you could say that still was Maya, like kind of transferring her power through her in a way.
I just think it doesn't fit with what was otherwise a very grounded, real series. And it just, it ended very quickly. So yeah, it kind of missed the mark on that for me. We did, however, they wrap up Maya's story, like we said earlier, that she is back with her family. Everything is good. So it does seem like it could end her story in the MCU there. I hope that's not the case. I hope we see her again in some other project. We don't get an end of the story for Wilson Fisk. Instead, we get a post-credits scene that sees him on his private jet getting ready to head back to New York, turns on a news broadcast and sees that a very funny discussion that I feel like you would never see on television. Just these 2 newscasters talking about how, there's the mayoral race in New York City and neither candidate is any good and New York wants a fighter. And so that part of it was kind of corny, but also very exciting for Marvel fans, because Wilson Fisk clearly has become interested in running for the mayor of New York, a story that does happen in the Marvel comics, led to a recent as in like 2 years ago.
Recent enough that I was like, oh, I remember you talking about this. The couple times I filled in on Marvel time.
A comic event called Devil's Reign that sees Wilson Fisk win mayor of New York and then outlaw all vigilantes. Really cool, sort of grounded story arc in the comics. I would love to see them adapt to that. So yeah, it was an exciting post-credit scene to end it on. Something I didn't expect, though, given the Spotlight banner. Again, it is sort of the reverse. Like, you don't have to see the rest of the MCU to understand Spotlight, but you may need to see Spotlight to understand some of the future MCU. So a little bit weird there, but I enjoyed it. I was excited about the ending. I was excited about the post-credit scene, not so much the ending. But overall, I do think Echo was a fun show and a good surprise.
Yeah. I'd just be curious to know the process that it went through, like you're saying, where did it have more? Did it have less?
Yeah. Well, and here's another question actually. Now, do you think we will get an assembled for Echo?
That'd be cool.
I would be really interested in that one. It's been a while since I've been like excited to
Echo
see
by Night.
I would love to see that one. I have a feeling they won't, just because of how different this project was, but I would love to see
and
that.
budgets. I don't know if they're still doing those.
True. Well, yeah, I guess we haven't gotten one for Loki season 2, right?
Don't think so.
So yeah, I guess that's the most recent.
They drop whenever they please. So who knows?
Right. Yes. So who knows when we'll see any new Marvel Studios assembled. All right. Anything else on Echo before we move on to our games?
I think we're good.
All right. Let's get back to old school Zzzax here and get into our first game. Oh, hang on one second. Before I do that, the banner is down. We are now getting into our games. How much is that cameo? I'm realizing now, as I see our guest waiting for us, that I did not tell him that we are doing this game again today. But we, as you might have guessed by now, we have Jeremiah joining us once again. Hi, Jeremiah.
Hello, and you do not have to put up a banner for me. This one is all mine. Thank you, Buc-ee's, for having these in stock.
I do love that. That is the, for those of you listening, that is the Roosevelt's symbiote shirt, the Venom and Carnage, which is awesome. Jeremiah, you've been with us, I don't know how many times at this point. We've done 82 episodes. You have to have been on for almost 20 of them. You know how much is that cameo works.
I do.
You need a refresher? Are we good? It's been a while.
I think we're good.
All right. So, Kyle, who's our cameo today?
Let me play you this person's intro.
Hey, everyone. It's Robert Hayes. I was gone for a few weeks. Little stuff that I had to take care of, but I busted out. I'm back. So if you want to do a little video, a little cameo for someone's birthday, someone's holiday, someone's busting out of prison, whatever you want to celebrate, then let me know. Let's have fun.
So that is Robert Hayes. You probably know him best as Ted Stryker in Aeroplane.
Oh my God.
Airplane, not aeroplane. But also, he voiced Iron Man and Tony Stark in some of the 90s cartoon series like Spider-Man, the animated series, and the Iron Man series, and Incredible Hulk, and those shows. So I taught you something you probably didn't know, but now I have a question for you. How much is that cameo?
What, you couldn't get Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for this one? But always fun to have an intro start with, I've been gone for a few weeks. Like, I don't know who you are yet. Just
if people are clicking on it, they must know who he is at that point.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. These voice actor ones, man, are always tough. Jeremiah, do you want me to set the bar here?
He's not just a voice actor.
Yeah,
he's an Airplane.
No, I'll start for you, Max. So you can go higher or lower. I'm going at just a flat 50 for this. He hasn't done anything in many years.
Yeah, that's a good number. That's right in the ballpark of what I was thinking. So I'm going to play the game here. I'm really just going to go for the under. I'm going to say $49.
All right. Well, then today's winner is Jeremiah, because that cameo is $100.
Wow.
And if it were $50, I'd probably buy it for Doobie. Yeah,
there you go. That's true. Doobie, by the way, big Airplane fan. So not big animated Iron Man fan, as far as I know, at least. I should have known to just go higher when it comes to cameo. These people charge a lot.
I think they are worth a lot more than they really are. And it's not degrading them, but we couldn't even think of who he was until you said Airplane. And then we're like, Airplane and Airplane 2.
All right. Are you guys ready to draft?
No.
Okay.
I have two things.
Okay.
One, Vincent D'Onofrio, Adventures in Babysitting was Thor.
Oh, okay.
That's what my comment was originally about. Okay. The thing that's bugged me the most about Echo is the first episode. Why is Biscuit's steering wheel on the wrong side?
I thought he was like a because she's a post woman, so she drives along the road on that side and can put the mail in.
But isn't it just a normal truck?
A pickup truck.
Yeah.
But you drive on the right side of the road. The mailboxes are on the right side of the road, so the mail you have on the right side. So
I get a mail truck would be.
So she has a custom truck because that's the side she's used to driving on.
No, not because that's her delivery truck.
Is it? Because isn't she doing deliveries when he drives by in the totaled truck later on?
Well, maybe I don't know.
That's the one thing the entire series. I really enjoyed Echo. It was a great series. I definitely see both of your points to it, but yeah, I think it came out much better than it was expected. Now let's draft.
All right, let's do it.
What if I told you we were putting a team together? Assemble.
It's been a while since we've played that little drop there. I forgot how ridiculous it is. Okay, we teased earlier, and again, it's in the episode title, so you already know what's coming. But this is not really going to be a very fun draft. We'll do our best to make it fun, but we are going to be drafting the most heartbreaking Marvel moments. Jeremiah, what kind of prep did you do for this one and putting your list together?
For me, it was pretty easy. I started with one, and then I started just going, oh, that was I remember crying during, I cried. Oh, yeah, that's right. I cried during that one, too. So as you talk, I'll probably be like, okay, I feel pretty safe in some of mine that you guys didn't go these ways just because I know you both, but we'll see.
Oh, I am almost certain my 4th round pick is already locked in. There's no way you guys touch it. But yeah, I agree. I had a few that came to mind immediately. There's the obvious ones that'll probably get taken right off the top here. But then I did go into some archives, watch some YouTube videos, maybe teared up a little bit before we started recording here. So yeah, we are going to be talking about some sad moments. Jeremiah, you know how this works. Do you want to draft first, second, or third?
The only way I'm going to get it is if I go first.
Probably smart. Kyle, I think you pick first of the two of us, unless you have any other recollection from our last draft was a long time ago.
But I'm going to go ahead and defer and go third if that's okay.
Yeah, that works for me.
I might regret it, but I'll explain when I get there.
Okay, well, I mean, I do think the top of this, there's a good 4 or 5 picks that could all be argued for the number 1. So, Jeremiah, kick us off. You wanted the first pick.
I wanted because there were 2 that were the easiest ones to go with, and while the other one is probably the top for most people, for me, I'm going Peter, and I don't want to go, Mr. Stark. I don't want to go.
Yeah. So I will alter your pick for you. And I think the snap, is the whole moment. I think you get right. I mean, do you disagree? It's all
no, you got to break it up.
Yeah,
you got to break it up. The answer is I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark.
Yeah. Okay, all right, we'll say that. I mean, I feel like this whole draft could just be characters disappearing from that then. But all right, so Spider-Man gets dusted is Jeremiah's first pick, and that's a good one. That actually, all right. Well, now I can't mention it because that wasn't even the first snap or the first from the snap in Infinity War. That wasn't the first moment that came to mind for me, but now it can still be drafted. So Spider-Man gets dusted is the first pick. I am going to go with the other snap. I'm going to take Tony Stark's death from Avengers Endgame. I don't think I have cried in a movie more than that moment. And my experience with this, by the way, I did see an early screening of Avengers Endgame. And so, it's not the typical theatrical experience where everybody is, screaming and stuff like that. But it was silent for, 15 minutes from the snap on. And there was just nothing but sniffling. That was all you could hear in the audience. So that moment, yeah, that has stuck with me for life. So Tony Stark's death is going to be my first pick.
Well, I'm going to go a different direction. I'm not going to go for votes on this one. I have to go with my conscience. And this was the moment that made me want to do this draft, and I wanted to resurface this moment for y'all. For my first pick, I'm taking Stephen Grant realizing that he missed his date and ordering a steak.
Wow. Yeah. No. Okay. So you said that, and I totally did. Like, Moon Knight was not on my radar, and as soon as you said Stephen Grant, a moment came to mind that I was like, "Wow, that's such a good pick," and it was not the one you picked. But I do remember recording the podcast and you saying, like, "I don't think there's anything sadder than him, like."
Because he's like trying to like keep it together.
Yeah.
So, like, of all the things, like, you know, I don't know if any of us are going to know someone who's going to snap and half of the people are going to disappear, and then someone's going to snap and kill themselves to save humanity. But, you know, just him being so confused, like, but I'm doing everything right. Why does this person suddenly hate me? And then, yeah, trying to like seem normal to this waiter while just like trying not to cry. Like, Oscar Isaac does such a great job. It's just so sad. I think I know what the other one you thought of was. But yeah, so that's my number one pick. And my second pick is somewhat related in that it involves time. And also I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I think heartbreak is a little bit different than just pure sadness. And I'm going to say Scott Lang returning after the snap and seeing Cassie and realizing that he missed 5 years.
I had that one also.
I also had that on my list. I've actually come to realize, and we were just watching something recently that I won't specifically name because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. But there's something about a time traveling parent returning to see their now older child that just immediately sparks tears for me. And Jess said the same exact thing as well. So there's something about that like sort of story construct there that I don't know. It's incredibly emotional.
What movie?
I can see Jeremiah trying to figure out what it was that I watched. We'll talk about it after. Okay, so Scott Lang returning or reuniting with Cassie, we'll call it. That is a good one. Was definitely high on my list. Okay, I can't go any further in the draft. I'm almost certain Jeremiah will steal this from me. And I considered taking it with my first pick because I think it is possibly, I mean, you know, the Tony Stark death scene forever ingrained in my brain, but this moment, I mean, like ruined me for weeks after seeing the movie. And Jeremiah, I know it did the same to you. We saw this movie together. So I'm going to go with a scene that I'm simply going to title Rocket Tief's Floor Go Now. It is Rocket's cybernetic animal friends getting killed in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
And I let you guys have that one because the last draft where we did deaths, I hadn't seen it yet, so you were forbidden from taking it. So that's part of why I allowed that to pass.
Oh, was Jeremiah on for the most memorable MCU deaths? No. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say, do we always have Jeremiah?
Maybe we were supposed to be, and then we had to reschedule. That seems like us.
That's usually how it goes. Yes.
But yeah, that moment, I mean, that stuck with me. I heard that little rabbit's voice in my head, just Rocket Tief's Floor Go Now. And then just led to the most emotional moment in that movie. So yeah, that's my pick there. And I feel not good. How do I feel good about my draft? But I do feel like I got two of the top ones from my list.
No, and I think you're dead on. My next two fall into that same category of James Gunn owns our hearts.
Okay.
I will go chronologically. The original Guardians of the Galaxy, we are Groot, and Rocket holding Groot, even though he came back. That was just the first real punch to the gut I felt.
Yeah.
In not all of MCU, but that one did a great job just because it was so perfect. And then for my next draft, Guardians 2, Yondu's funeral.
Yes.
Like, that cry every time. I'm on a plane, that's on, you look over, I'm crying, that's what's happening.
Yeah, and I also specifically had that on my list as Yondu's funeral. It's not his death scene, it's the funeral scene that really gets me. With the Ravagers sort of accepting him and everything in that moment. So Yeah, man, those are two.
Kraglin,
Kraglin,
excited.
yeah.
That's the hard part. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yep. That one definitely hits you. Okay. So now I had those those top two pretty easily at the top of my list. Now I don't know where to go because there's a lot that I could go with here. Oh man, this is really tough.
I'm glad I have a longer list because, yeah,
I almost wish my list
I have a lot
was
too
right now because I have too many options. I think I have to go with. I'm going to go to Spider-Man: No Way Home. I'm going to take Aunt May's death.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I do. I have
mine.
two moments on my list from that movie, but I'm going to take Aunt May's death because I think that one, it caught me off guard. You know, with the Spider-Man movies, and I considered because we opened this up to all of Marvel, not just the MCU, and I had a hard time thinking of anything outside of the MCU, to be honest. I started thinking of the other Spider-Man movies, and I'm like, well, the Uncle Ben moments, you knew they were coming. They had to happen in order to create Spider-Man. We didn't get that with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Instead, we got this Aunt May moment that was so incredibly powerful and incredibly well acted. And so, yeah, that one definitely hit me for sure. Aunt May's death is my third pick.
I have a few. One of them's kind of
So Kyle has Steve. One of the funniest ways to title this, just Stephen Grant orders a steak.
That's what it is on my sheet, but I would like whatever. I'm not gonna win. So I guess this doesn't matter. I'm gonna take Stephen Strange can't save Christine.
Yeah. I wasn't sure how to title that one too. On my list, I had Christine Palmer's death montage.
Yeah.
Does that fall under What If or Doctor Strange or?
No, yeah. In the What If episode, I don't remember the title of the episode. Oh, what if Stephen Strange lost his hand or his heart instead of his hands? Right. Yeah. Incredible episode, and yeah, that whole episode, it could be just one of the most heartbreaking things in Marvel. But yeah, that. Watching her die again and again and watching him just break down more and more. Yeah, that was tough. That's a good pick.
And then I have two from the same show. And I don't know which way to go, but I guess, I got to save my votes a little bit. I'm going to take the grief hex.
The moment she creates the hex. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I also had a moment from that show on my list. But yeah, the creation of the hex is a good one. All right, so I am back up now, and like I said at the top here, I have I was pretty much locked in to my fourth round pick because I was almost certain neither of you guys were going to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So
you did ask if it was any Marvel TV show, and so I figured.
Well, I was trying to think of like anything from the Netflix shows or anything like that. There was no real moment that stood out to me. Now
Apocalypse existing.
Oh, I do have the moment I bought a ticket to see Morbius Morbius on my list. But yeah, I'm going to go with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I assumed, off the top that I was going to pick a moment between Fitz and Simmons. If you guys haven't watched the show, those two characters together were just heartbreaking constantly. And the actors were both so good. But there was no one moment that really stood out to me as being my pick. So instead, I'm going with A Spy's Goodbye. So that was the moment that Bobby Morse and Hunter left the team. And, they're sitting at a bar. They think it's over. They've left the S.H.I.E.L.D. team. And then you see one other member of the team in the background. And, they have shots ordered to their table. And then you see another member of the team and then another, and they're all popping up all over the place. And it's sort of this secretive goodbye. And they all just raise a glass. And then that's the end of their story. And so that moment stood out to me. And this was, probably like season 4 of the show. This had to be 15 years ago almost. Like this was so long ago.
I think that was season 3 because that was like one of the last good episodes. And then after that, it just went all time traveling wonky.
It had its moments. After that. But this moment stuck out to me more than anything else from that show. So yeah, A Spy's Goodbye is going to be my last pick. So Jeremiah, we are back to you now. for the final pick, and I have, I don't know, 10 more on my list still.
Mine was, this really to me was it really is defining the moment of the heartbreaking, and why a certain team was formed. Coulson gets speared.
Okay.
That was, I can remember us all sitting in the theater. I'm sure your theaters were doing this, and we're like, oh yeah. No. It's defined as the reason why the Avengers were formed, why they had something to fight against. Sure.
Even those baseball
Fury
cards
was
were
lying. Yeah. But no, that was one of those, like, Coulson, I kind of feel like they cheapened his death with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and him coming back, but they needed something for a decent series for a couple of seasons and then a horrible season. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be fair, my moment can't happen without your moment happening. Yeah. So there you go. That is a good pick, and I think deserves to be in this draft. Let me run through our lineups real quick, and then we'll go through some honorable mentions we might have. Jeremiah has Spider-Man Gets Dusted, We Are Groot, Yondu's Funeral, and Coulson's death. I have Tony Stark's death, Rocket Tief's Floor Go Now, Aunt May's death, and A Spy's Goodbye. Kyle has Stephen Grant Orders a Steak, Scott Lang Reunites with Cassie, Stephen Strange Can't Save Christine, and The Grief Hex. All good picks, as funny as that Stephen Grant Orders a Steak title is.
Rewatch that clip, please.
No, it's 100%. It's a good pick, and it is a very real moment, like you said, but no, just a funny title. Jeremiah, what was left on your list?
I just had a bunch flying through my head because I never write down my list. WandaVision, when Wanda says goodbye to the kids, that I think that was one of the heartbreaking ones.
I had Vision's goodbye. I think him saying, we've said goodbye in the past, so it stands to reason we'll see each other again. That moment for sure. I mean, the reason why I think both Kyle and I said you can't just throw everything into the snap. There were so many of those. Again, Rocket with Groot. That was a heartbreaking moment. That was the first one that came to mind for me, especially with James Gunn translating his "I am Groot" to say, to like calling Rocket Dad in that moment. Brutal. No, there were so many, and I didn't even think about going back into some of the Spider-Man, the Hulk. The biggest one, and I left this out, this kind of falls under one of yours, Mac. Spider-Man emo dancing. That was probably one of the most heartbreaking moments in Marvel history. That's where we knew it jumped the shark, and that Spider-Man was done. Well, Topher Grace cast as Eddie Brock also could have been one. Kyle, what about you? What else is on your list?
Well, if he was able to take the entire snap, then I would have wanted the entire post snap, which I guess technically would have fallen under the Tony Stark one, and I'd have to argue whether you mean his death or everybody coming back. But the other one from WandaVision that was on my list was Monica coming back after the snap and wondering where her mother is, finding out she's dead. Yeah. I also have MJ and Ned not knowing Peter. Yes, that was what I assume you thought I was going when I said No Way Home. That was on my list as the other moment from that movie for sure. Steve calling Peggy as he's crashing or talking to Peggy. Bucky saying, "But I knew him," and then getting his brain fried. Okay, yeah, I didn't think of that. Thor's mother talking to future Thor before her death. Eat a salad. Yeah. And then a couple of suggestions from Becca. Echo talking to her mom. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. That was on my list. I think it pulled away just before it got like truly like heartbreaking. But yeah, the moment they reunite was really, really well done too. And then the last one on her list was She-Hulk getting ghosted by the guy that took her blood. Sure. The two at the top of my list right here, and I'm really surprised neither one of you guys mentioned, were Black Widow's death and Gamora's death. Those are both on mine, yeah. Let's see, what else did I have left here then? T'Challa's death, really, you could have just Wakanda forever. There were so many moments in that just another moment where that movie opens with T'Challa's death.
And then you have silence throughout this scroll, and it was just sniffling in the audience. It was just brutal. If I was going to pick one Fitzsimmons moment from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's a moment where Fitz from the future past. There's some time traveling stuff going on here, but he learns of his death in the future and then learns that he and Simmons were married or were engaged. And it's a brutal moment there too. And that's actually it, because we have mentioned everything else, specifically the moment I bought a ticket for Morbius. So
I also kind of thought about briefly thinking about Gwen Stacy and Amazing Spider-Man 2, but that's also kind of become a meme, so it's hard to say. But I think No Way Home does it a service.
Yes,
but still.
Yeah, and actually, I think you could even say the moment that he saves MJ in No Way Home, because you get that closure that you don't really think about. But also could have gone to Spider-Verse, Aaron Davis's death.
Well, even the one where Miles is learning about the memories, the things that have to happen, and he's seeing all the different deaths of
in Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, absolutely, that is a good one. There's so many. Like I said, this was difficult to make a fun draft, but I think I have to say somehow heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Shut up. Shut your face. Next, we're talking about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom of crap, of horribleness.
Doobie's not here. You can say that.
Well, Jeremiah, thank you for joining us for a depressing draft. What else? What do you got going on? Where are you going to be this week?
Nowhere, thankfully. No, I'm still kind of recovering. My sickness is almost gone. At some point, we all need to go hang out at, Kyle, you need to come out too. Then we can all go hang out at Fest of the Arts, have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
Go see that.
Check out some of the Marvel art they have there, because they always have some amazing stuff.
Yes, they have a surprisingly Marvel. I don't remember who it is that does that. Has a very small booth in front of the American Adventure, but they have some great pieces that were inspired by the Disney Plus shows or Disney Marvel films.
Mm-hmm.
But the Moon Knight one, I mentioned the artist and I can't think of his name, but now he pops up constantly on my Instagram of this beautiful piece of Moon Knight from Disney Plus show that even has Mr. Knight fixing his tie. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us, and I'm sure we'll meet up at Epcot.
Yes, let's do it.
All right. Thanks, Jeremiah.
Bye, guys.
All right. So that is going to do it for another episode of the Zzzax of Live podcast. It's going to be a while. Right, like we have no Marvel stuff on the horizon. We've got quite a while before we get Deadpool 3, and as far as we know, that's the next big project. So we might have an episode between. I mean, I would assume we'll have an episode between
some assembleds.
That's true. We might get some assembleds. We might get who knows, whatever, some sort of documentary about the making of the music for a movie or something. There could be anything, but. Even if it's just to come back and catch up on all the Marvel news that happens between now and then, because we're looking at July, right? So, we'll have a lot to catch up on, I'm sure. That's going to do it. Kyle, anything else that I'm forgetting here?
Nothing I can think of.
Yeah, I mean it's Wednesday right now, so it's not like we don't even really have anything else coming up on the Laughing Plays YouTube channel anytime very soon. So, nothing to plug there. But of course, head to laughingplace.com. Check out all the latest Marvel news, all the latest Disney news in general. If you're watching right now, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications for all of our live shows. And we will be back at some point in the future.
Bye. Forever.